How are you doing? It's so good to see you again.
I'm good. I've just arrived back from California and 12 days going from, I don't think I've ever been to met as many pet store owners and pet parents, and amazing.
I
From
bet
south of LA through to north of San Francisco in 12 days.
there's so many people who are crazy about animals like us, and it's so exciting.
I know, it's so exciting. And I think that everyone's super excited that ROCKSTER's now hit the west coast of America.
Yeah, it's very exciting. There are so many people who are like, I've never heard of this before, and my dogs love it. And I'm like, it's amazing.
Well, do you know what's so incredible is a lady who's been involved in the industry. She started a store called Raw Connection. She's been involved in the whole movement towards raw food for over 20 years. And she's moving her own dog to ROCKSTER, which
Wow.
is amazing.
Incredible. Okay,
Yeah.
so I really wanted to introduce ROCKSTER to my audience. Give it all the recognition it deserves. So let's start with an introduction. Tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Zoe. I am speaking to you from a very dull and quite cold England, which is definitely much sunnier in California, where I've just been. I and my husband Sven got married a very long time ago, but on our honeymoon we found what was we thought dying dog, and we did this insane thing, and we cancelled our honeymoon to rescue who became known as the ROCKSTER, who is behind me. There we go, behind my desk. And, you know, who knew we were the ones actually that needed rescuing, and he really rescued us right back. He was at least 5 when we found him, and respectively, let me just get this picture out here. He looked like this. I don't know if you can see it here. Does that? So he was, you know, skin and bones, and aside from I would be here for about 10 hours if we were. I got the camera to work then. And he wouldn't eat pet food. He would rather go through dustbins. He would cross highways to go and hang out in restaurants, going, no, they're not feeding me. And what we thought was the best dog food we could possibly buy for him, it was in the bowl, and he wouldn't. There was nothing that would make him eat it. So it wasn't until a number of years later, and he was so fussy that if there was chicken, rice, and peas in a bowl, he wouldn't eat the peas. There would just be the peas left at the bottom of the bowl. He knew, right? Because who knew peas aren't very good for dogs. So, and many years later, an expert in Germany explained to us that actually, I'll tell you why your street dog won't eat pet food. And that is because he knows it's not very good for him. And we went, what? And you know, I think that we all try and look at the pretty pictures of the fillet steak and the blueberries on the front, right? But how many people really look at the back and actually look at the ingredient deck and look at genuinely what is in the food? And in America, I'm shocked to see that it's actually way worse than in Europe, because in Europe, you can put the percentages on the ingredient deck, on the package. In America, that's actually illegal, which is really frightening. So, I mean, for us Brits and Europeans, sort of transparency is, at least a modicum of transparency is sort of our normal. But for it not to be allowed is kind of crazy. Anyway, so he then said what went on in the pet food industry and what was really in pet food. And you have that, what I call kind of like epiphany. You go, oh my God. So ROCKSTER was at this point already probably an old dog. We don't know how. All we know is he was at least 5 when we found him. And my godfather, Sir John Vane, had won the Nobel Prize for medicine, and was very, like, legend of a scientist. And whilst he won the Nobel Prize for aspirin, and he was involved in so many incredible scientific landmarks, really. But one of his things that always stuck with me in my life was that he was probably the world's first globally recognized scientist that said there's no such thing as an allergy. And we were like, I know, we've got celiac disease, we've got all these people. And he said possibly peanuts and something so chemical. But there has never been a lion born in the world allergic to giraffe or wildebeest or wild animals. And there's never been a lion who's died ever allergic to a giraffe or wildebeest or whatever. It's kind of the same for us. No human is born allergic to egg. No human is born allergic to chicken or beef. And it's the same with dogs. There is not a dog on this planet that was born allergic to those kind of proteins or egg. Where does the egg come from? That's what you have to think of. And he said, which I always struck with me, was if you take from the invention of penicillin or antibiotics, and you track commutable diseases, so diseases that I could give you if we weren't on a Zoom or a Teams meeting. You can catch TB from someone. You can catch a bacterial infection from someone. Those went down, absolutely. Have antibiotics in one sense been a panacea for the world? Absolutely. But if you track what's called NCDs, which are non-commutable diseases, I can't give you an allergy. I can't give you diabetes. I can't give you cancer. They are all diseases related to the immune system. And he even talked about the bacterial balances in the gut, which of course we now know of as the microbiome. And we all know about the microbiome, but this is in the 1970s and 1980s, and obviously in 1990s. And pre even the internet, pre even mobile phones, which is quite interesting. If you look at those, they've gone through the roof.
Yeah.
Why? So most people don't ever really think about it, but actually between and historically up to 80% of all antibiotics are used in food production, are used in agriculture. They're not used to cure you of a disease or an animal of a disease. They're used to stop prophylactically animals dying from essentially inhumane conditions. And so they're used as what's called anaphylactically. Now, when you have an antibiotic, as you know, kills all bacteria, good ones and bad ones. Well, they used to until we developed resistance to them. And that's exactly what happens. So when we found out about ROCKSTER and the pet food and what was really in it, I brought this up with the people that we were with, and we assembled a team of experts and said, what if we just took cost off the table? And this wasn't supposed to be a food for other dogs. It was supposed to be a food for a ROCKSTER. Could we create a food that he will, love to eat? And there'll be no upended dustbins. There'll be no running off to restaurants anymore, at least de minimis. Really important catch is I am the world's worst cook, like the worst. So I didn't want recipes. And then in Europe, we have something called bio, which is, think of it as organic on steroids without the steroids. It is a system and a form of regulation that exists, and it's a religion really in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, and in various parts of Europe, which has a zero tolerance to antibiotics, it is a holistic form of raising animals, which, aside from the fact that they're in humane conditions, they're in the appropriate conditions for their species, they're having appropriate feed, but they're not even allowed to be on soil that has ever had an animal-fed antibiotics. So it's completely clean. And what if we took that meat and specific parts of the animal? So the amino acids and the profile of those animals is anyway a different kind of nutrient profile than what I would call farm factory or lesser meats. And we take specifically the muscle, which is where the amino acids methionine and cysteine are. And what if we combine that with certain inner organs, which would mimic also the ancestral diet of the dog, and then to a very high percentage, between 80 and 86%. And then we add, some people call them superfoods, they're fruits and vegetables, again, bio quality. So one bio blueberry is the antioxidant value of 20 inorganic blueberries. In very specific combinations, really initially we were targeting various things that can go wrong in dogs, like eyesight, like joints, various things. And then we add that to 100%, or actually just under 99. And then we add what we call fermented Jerusalem artichoke concentrate, which is a natural form of inulin that is also a prebiotic to help repopulate his gut and his microbiome. And it has another function where, because it slows the digestion down slightly, it boosts nutrient absorption. And here's the catch, where instead of keeping it raw, the way we can make him love to eat this, and we wouldn't need 50 freezers, is that we cook it. And sous vide, which is amazing, I've also come back from the States, does not mean gently cook. Right. Sous vide means under vacuum, sous vide vacuum. So it actually, what that sous vide cooking was originated in France as a natural flavor enhancer. So if you cook raw, and it has to be from raw and unprocessed before, where it's sealed with no access to oxygen, you do three things to the food. First of all, you prevent any oxidation, so it's much healthier than open pan cooking. Secondly, you prevent any leaching of the fat or water-soluble vitamins, and nothing gets out, so it's all there in the package. And thirdly, it is an intensive flavor enhancer, which explains why some dogs will often go for ROCKSTER before they'll go for raw meat. And obviously that's gently cooked to be, and it enables it actually to be shelf stable, which is amazing because it's also convenient. So we gave it to ROCKSTER. ROCKSTER went absolutely bananas, like he'd never eaten food before. So we were like, yay! And we had quite a lot of it. He absolutely thrived on it. And as a sort of addendum to the story, he went on to be one of Europe's oldest dogs ever. He was at least 21 and he became a daddy at least 18. This is him jumping in the mountains in Switzerland, and he's at least 17 now. At 20, he made it up a mountain way quicker than either Sven or our kids, which is kind of embarrassing, actually. But, you know, and again, it was just ROCKSTER's food. And so we had quite a lot of it. So we started giving it away to certain friends. Some people were saying, oh my God, if you put, what have you put in that dog food? What is in it? I was like, it's just unbelievable ingredients. And it's all bio. And it's certain in Europe, it's not like in other countries, let's put it that way. When you're certified in Germany, you're really certified. Like the Germans don't really break any kind of, it's brutal. So one of the milestones that really made us think, okay, we should make this available for other dogs, is there was a dog that then owners knew someone who knew someone who knew someone who knew us. The dog was about to die. It hadn't eaten for 5 days. It had acute kidney failure and an underlying autoimmune condition called Charpey fever. He was 2 years old. And they said, we're going to put him down if we can't get him to eat something. Could you give some of ROCKSTER's special food to this family to see if the dog would eat it? So King immediately ate the food and went on a diet of ROCKSTER. And there was what can only be described as a miracle. And so we thought maybe, okay, we need to help maybe other dogs. So that's when we started designing and renaming the recipes together with the kids to try and weave ROCKSTER's story from finding him near Naples to his retirement in London.
Wow.
And the rest is, and then we got approached by a group in America to say, oh my God, they flew over to England and they said, nothing has ever existed like this in America, ever. And it's actually, I really get it now, because you don't have bio. You do not have, even if you wanted to make Rockster in America, you couldn't, because you just don't have that. I think antibiotics are actually allowed, and I've learned more and more and more about the practices in America, and that's just the human food. So you couldn't even make, you wouldn't even get those ingredients like sea buckthorn berries and things that we use in Rockster, and even in New Zealand, when it was such a tough time getting, bioorganic dog food into Europe, into America. But at one point we tried to see if we could make it in from Europe. Could we make it in New Zealand? And yeah, even the best of the best that were pre-Rockster always uses MRM, which is mechanically reclaimed meat, which obviously has no, we genuinely use the muscle. We're 100% transparent. That was really important to us, that when we were, I'll never forget that day when we were told what we've been trying to force Rockster to eat, and I just felt lied to. Yeah. And I felt that if we were going to do this, we had to show you, as you have a right, everyone has a right to know exactly what they're buying, right? And that's just a fundamental right. So we give 100% ingredients, including exactly what part of the animal that we've been using. We show all of the certifications. We make it in our own, so we could do that very special cooking process with those very special ingredients. We could do that in plastic, but why would we? Because it's toxic, it leaches into the food, and it's not great for the environment, as is Tetra Pak. You couldn't even actually do that kind of cooking in Tetra Pak. So we use our own very, very special tip, which is chemical free, and it doesn't look like anything else, and because it's not a normal can. But technically it looks like a can, but it's not a canned food, and it's the most environmentally friendly and healthiest way to sous vide, truly sous vide the food. It's made in Europe, in Germany. It's certified in Germany, and yeah, after 4 years where it probably would have been easier to get a nuclear weapon in America, whoa, we managed to get bioorganic Rockster superfood into the United States of America. And now we've had people from America who just love their dogs so much that they found Rockster in Europe and wanted to buy it in the States. And like, when's it coming? When there was, some people would fly into Europe just to, come and get a supply of Rockster for their dog and try and smuggle it in, which I probably shouldn't say publicly, but
I mean,
I've obviously never done that.
I might try, because it is food. But I'm glad that it came to the United States. I wanted to ask, or more so, I read this on the website and I want you to explain it to everyone else. What is the difference between a dry food, a dehydrated food? Why did you choose to make it the type? And you kind of already answered this, but what is really the difference?
So when you take the moisture in food is really, really important. So when we were that day, weeks, months going, okay, could we create a food that would really make a difference to Rockster's life, right? Not that obviously that he would love to eat it, but that would really, at that point, we had no idea if he only had maybe 1 or 2 or 3 years left. We had no idea that he might go on to have another 10 years. Right? And I do think that was the food. I really do think that's food. Is what could we create that would be the best, right? And that is clearly a wet food, because the moisture content in food is really important, and there's actually valuable nutrients in that moisture. And if it's a form of hydration, that if you're feeding a dehydrated food, you need to provide moisture from somewhere. And I think that, I get it, that there are a number of different kibble. I would never, ever feed personally, now what I know, but there's some people who can't avoid it. And so there is a way. What are the ways to make that better? So instead of putting a water or a bone broth, for example, onto dry food, then it's far better to do that through a wet food or use a wet food like a topper.
Right. Yes, that answers it wonderfully. And everyone was like, I don't know if I can afford this. My food said, yes, absolutely. I was like, your site left and right answering questions.
Oh, you're such a sweetheart. No, I mean, I think that there are, so it's a little bit like us, right? You can, you know, if you have just one healthy thing a day or a week, that's better than never having it.
Right. Right. I believe that's 100% the case for anyone in the human food. I mean, we need to eat.
Yeah.
Well. So a question that I had that's aside from my little sheets here.
Oh, I'm just going to blow my nose because I've got a cold coming back.
So, as far as the DNA of animals, how has changing the DNA in America and feeding that to ourselves and to dogs made a huge difference in our drastic health changes and negative ways?
So I don't know about our DNA, our deoxynucleic acid and RNA, and what I would say is that diet, you are what you eat, and let food be thy medicine, the Hippocrates, and that is true of everything. So that is true of a wild animal, and that's true of us and our children, and that's absolutely true with our dogs and our pets. So I would also say that when you have, you know, intensively farmed, and think about it, if you've got chicken that are having no natural conditions whatsoever, they're being pumped full of something that makes them fat quickly. They're being pumped full of something that artificially keeps, you know, them alive because they're actually in inhumane, disease-ridden environments, and they don't have the natural inputs of vitamin D, and, you know, everything is chemical. Do you think that that meat is the same profile as a chicken that's been, all the eggs that are coming out of it, that is something, a chicken that has been outside on pesticide-free land with pesticide-free and antibiotic-free food, sunlight, and exercise? Which would you say is healthier?
The healthy chicken, healthy living.
Right, healthy egg. That's why you're not allergic. People aren't, and dogs are not allergic to the egg. They're allergic to that egg and what that has created, and the dysbiosis in our, let alone our pets, guts. And that's the food that's going into the human food chain, right? Think about what was going into pet, or is going into pet.
Right.
And therefore, over time, what you're going to have, you know, scientifically going on is the microbiome will be altered. That's the second brain. That's, you know, one of the key fountains for our own immune system to work. Second, you're getting diseases that are increasingly resistant to various different antibiotics. And on the other side, the actual profile and caliber on going in is altered. So, I mean, I don't know how many people you know who've suddenly developed allergies. And I was shocked by how many dogs and store owners were saying that allergies in every dog that they know of has an allergy of some kind or sensitivity of some kind. That's been created. They were not born like that.
Wow.
And
okay.
if I could almost, I mean, put a, you know, a challenge on here is, I know that if those people who believe, oh my, we've had owners who've said, oh, no, my dog is allergic to beef. I know my dog's allergic to beef. And I've gone, okay, why don't you feed this and this and this and this, i.e. non-beef ROCKSTER recipes for a month, and then just try ROCKSTER's beef or ROCKSTER Buff du Cap.
Right.
The dog was fine.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely fine.
That is amazing.
Absolutely fine. And I mean, even down, so for example, people think, a can, right? Well, I know, I mean, my daughter's been diagnosed with something which You know, we found out her histamine levels were really, really high. She's been told she cannot eat or drink water or eat food that's been stored in plastic. She has to have it from a glass or an aluminium. And even around LA, I was seeing that like the really smart places are sending now water in tin bottles and aluminium bottles, not in plastic bottles or glass bottles. That's why we use the tin.
Wow.
Because the leaching of that, so when you talk about how food and input really get altered, it changes everything, even your hormones, your histamine levels, the way that your gut is able to function. It can't function if there is a dysbiosis in it, and it needs there are good bacteria.
Right. So I have a question aside from this, because I'm curious. If we changed our diet and made everything really, really clean to eat, would this help our seasonal allergies?
Potentially, absolutely. Because if you, and I'm not an expert on that, and you know, my godfather would be always, he would never do something unless he'd really done a trial in it. But instinctively, it should do, right? Because your histamine levels should get regulated, and you might find a number of different things change.
That is amazing.
You know, and I mean, it's harder with a human also because our lifespan are in general, you know, hopefully a lot longer than a dog. But and I think it becomes really acute when your dog hits around 7 and you think the average lifespan of a dog is, you know, 11, 12. Oh my God. And, you know, if you really look at the invention of the average age of a dog always historically was at least 18. It was perfectly normal for a dog to live to 18, 19, even not that unusual to 21. But that was before commercial pet food.
Yeah. And even we live longer, and I feel like maybe shortening our lives this way. Wow.
Yeah. But a lot of that, I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of people who've been dying younger, but I think that there's a balance now between medicine originally made us live longer.
Right.
And we're creating, especially autoimmune conditions that historically were not that prevalent, right? If you look at the history of diabetes, it's a relatively modern phenomenon.
Right.
And now you could argue that with cancers, people died before they would actually know how to diagnose or let alone treat those conditions. But I mean, health and the gut and gut health and what I think is really frightening, especially for countries like America, and the UK, by the way, is going the same way as America, which is the soil depletion. I mean, it becomes a concentric circle. And someone's got to break that pattern somehow.
Right.
And unlike us, dogs can't really, I mean, dogs are omnivores, they need meat, like cats. You ever met a vegetarian lion?
No.
It's not. Or a vegetarian wolf sitting there, chomping away on its alfalfa.
That would be funny.
No.
So explain what omega 6-3 ratio means.
So those are, for example, the omega 6-3 is, so people talk about fat. And actually there are good fats and there are healthy fats, and it's about the proportion of the fats to them. And it's your omega 3 and your omega 6s that are the important fats. So when you're trying to think of and people talk low fat diet, it's actually what is the 3-6 omegas that you're feeding. And that's especially important with dogs such as pancreatitis, where the prevailing thing is, it needs to be low fat. Actually, it needs to be what kind of fat, and those good fats. And that's why we're open. And that's, and the ORAC count, which I think we're the only food in the world in pet that gives our ORAC count, which is the antioxidant value. And So a normal food, pet food, probably delivered chemically, would have anywhere between 0 and maybe 40, maybe 60 Tmol. We go in some cases up to nearly 3,000. And the reason for that is the bio quality and the sheer volume, again, helped by packaging that doesn't necessarily, well, that they're actually not allowed to tell you how many blueberries, right? So you could have 0.00001% blueberry powder, and that would enable someone to put blueberry on the ingredient deck. We actually use those fruits and vegetables in like 3%, 4%. I mean, significant doses. And we, of course, cook them from fresh, bio. And with the sous vide, the water and the fat-soluble vitamins and vitamin C doesn't leach out.
Wow. And you have plenty of antioxidants as well, which is wonderful. Especially in you said Jerusalem artichoke. Right?
Yeah. And that's so we're in America, it's the organic inulin that's on the label deck, because you've got a really weird thing called AFCO, which we're able to say exactly what kind of inulin in Europe, but somehow in America we're not allowed to. So, but it is fermented Jerusalem artichoke concentrate, which is an organic inulin, and that is just, it's amazing. I mean, it's a beyond superfood. I don't think you even have it in America. And what it is it's a natural prebiotic, as well as rich in its own right in a variety of different fabulous things. But it does also serve to aid nutrient absorption and heighten nutrient absorption. And with dogs, that's especially important because of the length of the gut. It's relatively small, the intestine.
I had never heard of Jerusalem artichoke and saw it through the ROCKSTER site, and I was like, oh, what is this? I don't think I have it here. But
no, you might do. You do have artichokes there, but I don't think you have the Jerusalem artichoke.
No, but we have regular, like, just a basic artichoke.
No, the Jerusalem is much more like a root.
Oh wow, okay, that's
what it is. But it's really like, I mean, it's a wonder ingredient. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. As are, sea buckthorn berries. I mean, was known as the miracle berry in the miracle food of China. It's been used in medicine in China and various parts of Asia since records began. I mean, it's really incredible. So
I'm just shocked by the fact that we can't have percentages of anything here.
I know.
I was wondering why we didn't have, like, how do I know how much of what is in my food? And now I know, because you explained it to me, that we're not allowed to have it.
I mean, sure, you must be allowed it on human food, but AFCO doesn't allow it on pet food.
Right. Many human food doesn't have that, though. Like, most human food that I've had doesn't have, doesn't have the percentage of what foods are in the
shocking. I mean, it's absolutely. So what that enables, and one of the other thing I saw in the States now was that you have all of these foods, and then the second ingredient is like water. You're like, why would you have water as the second biggest ingredient if you're using meat?
Right.
Are you actually just hydrolyzing kibble, or are you just hydrolyzing meat powder? Why do you need water?
Yeah, there's not a lot of transparency.
No.
It's frustrating. And
so we're not obviously allowed to put the percentages on the ingredient deck either, but we do it above it. And then obviously it's everywhere, that from the website to the brochures to the in-store things.
That's wonderful. I'm so glad that you found a way to put that on there, because.
And how's Echo doing? Is Echo loving it?
No, and Everest both love it, and I let them share it. They're coach shinier. They play way more. They have a lot.
Amazing.
Everest used to have what you called allergies, and he doesn't have any food sensitivities, so that is wonderful. His eyes got a little more clear because I guess the change in diet So
it is amazing what it does, huh?
Yeah, it is wonderful. So before we finish, is there any new Rockster products that will be released or you have planned?
Maybe. I mean, it's been quite hard launching the food and getting it into America. Now it's in. I think it's really, and it's going into some incredible stores. And I mean, there was one lady who's been in the business outside of the one I told you, and who's a wolf feeder, but she sort of burst out of tears and she hung with her. I've been waiting 17 years to have a product like this for the dogs and for my customers, and it's amazing. And oh my God. And so I think that, yeah, we would like to do some form of treats and supplements. I think we might do like a slow feeding bowl.
Right.
Maybe with the Rockster R. So because I know that some dogs, because it tastes so amazing, they can really try and eat it first.
Right.
And maybe also things that, I mean, I'm sure we'll find some great new Rockster. I really love mushrooms, and so I want to try and do some. But all I can assure you is that if there is anything with the Rockster name and the Rockster logo on it, and I'm alive, that it will be the best of the best. It will be no stone unturned, no corners cut. There will be. He's our baby, right? He's this one. He's in I have him above my opus.
Oh, he's so sweet, and he had puppies, right?
He had puppies. I don't know where they are. I think they've gone to the other. Yes, Heartster and Rockster Junior. We have, and then Trickster and Dragster are with very close friends of ours. So
that was so exciting. And that would be wonderful because both my dogs tried to literally inhale the food.
Yeah, I know.
Having to give them,
especially dogs in America, because they're like, oh my God, they've probably never tasted something like that ever.
They probably have not. And so I give them a little spoonful at a time, and I'm like, okay, eat slow. Okay, I'll give you. Gotta eat slow because it's going to. You're not going to be able to taste the amazing aspects of this food, so you just can't inhale it, okay? And
hilarious,
because they're like, I just want it all at once.
But I think it's amazing that you've seen the food sensitivities fall away, and I think that's I really think that it's shocking how many of these dogs in the States especially have food sensitivities or potential, what they're saying is allergies, and it's obvious what's happened, and the way of farming and the way of food production will have to change, and will have to radically change, because it's just the use of antibiotics at the moment is so critical and fundamental to food production, especially factory farming,
right, that
it's almost not, it's so ingrained and entrenched in it. That, yeah, I think that it probably is, as you mentioned earlier, to a certain degree, DNA altering.
Yeah.
And in terms of evolution, it's really scary to think what we're doing, not only to them, but by definition also us and our pets, and the fact that we're having now microbial drug resistance, which is tragic, and it is because of the use of antibiotics in the food production.
Right, and a lot of my audience knows that I've dealt with some severe allergies, but I also was fed antibiotics, and I want to tell everyone I had antibiotics for years because I was constantly getting sick. I wish my parents took an alternate route because I had so many in my system, and I think that might contribute to a lot of the reason why I have all these things going on, and it might have just not been that helpful for me. So yes, and also I was reading the other day about how what we feed our animal could change how we might be allergic to them. That I found interesting as well.
Wow.
Yeah, so
I'd love to see that. If you can send that to me, I'd love to read that.
Something that I found, and you might find interesting. I was diagnosed with dog allergies, and I had allergy shots for years, and I'm still semi-allergic to dogs, even though I have 2 very shitty dogs that I was just like, no, I don't care. I love dogs. So when I started feeding Rockster, me and my mom, who was diagnosed with a dog allergy, was like, I'm not having that many allergies around them now. And I was like,
that's amazing.
I looked it up because I was like, can what we feed our dogs change our allergies to them? And yeah, so I found that, and I thought that you might
That's amazing. That's a first. I've never heard that, but I'm not surprised actually. So what it is that because what is in the food, there is nothing toxic. There is no antibiotic. There's no growth hormone. There's no steroid, and we can't lie because we're really certified, and we're certified in Germany and in Germany and Austria and Switzerland. They don't bend the rules for anything, right? And I was just on this amazing site earlier. I want to do a blog about it, and I think I might join them, which is called Farm. It's an organization and a charity that's trying to raise awareness, and Harvard has just joined it, and UC Berkeley, and I think even Cornell, and because it really is the epidemic of our lives is what is actually being created. And 200 years ago, people weren't allergic to anything.
Right. I've loved this conversation, and I'm sure a lot of people will be shocked by the things that you say, because I was, when I first talked to you, and I talked with my friend after we left, and we were like, this is life-changing. Why haven't we not heard this before? And she was like, I will feed my dog Rockster forever. And I said, yes, let's find it. And then we realized there's not a lot in the US, but that it is in the US, so we could get it. And she was like, I will go to Link's End to get this food. And I'm so glad that it's slowly coming into the US more and more, because like you said, people were going to Europe or London to get the food.
Yeah. And there's also a website that delivers Pan America now. So that's baxterboo.com.
Wow. Okay.
So you just go on the website. It's like a sort of smaller, much more selective and higher end chewy. And they're great. They're baxterboo.com, and they can deliver anywhere in the US.
Thank you so much. That is wonderful. And I think that would be helpful because we're trying to find it. So I wanted to thank you, and I look forward to talking to you again later, but I will be posting some of this for everyone, and I'm sure that they will be so thankful that.
Oh, well, and anybody, you ever have any questions, then don't hesitate to reach out. I'll be back in the States probably next month. I'm definitely back in August. Most months I'm in the States now. I love it. I'd love to move to America. I think it's such a cool country, except for the food.
Yes, the food is not the greatest, but your family was lovely when we met them. My friend was like, that was one of the nicest people we have met in America, or even at this. I was like, I know, we need to move to London. And then
come stay.
So funny. Thank you so much.
Oh, Jenny, it's such a pleasure, and thank you for having me. And I want to hit to keep regular updates about the dogs, and super cool to see you. And you have an open invite to come stay.
Oh, thank you so much. You are so sweet and have been such a blessing in our lives. So I will let you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. Hugs from England.
Bye-bye.
Bye.